Alrighty, everyone, the time has come. Welcome back, my friends, to another episode of Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit. It's time to build the thing, and this time force the thing into the campaign in such a way that the GM quits forever, and we're all playing in the Stone Age forever, / how to teach our players to really make sure we have a good touch AC. Today, at the request, bang, of Mr. Boros, Parallax's player, over at Final Fantasy Heralds of Dawn, the Goblin Memery continues. This time, with a Goblin Gunslinger. Yeah, we finally hit that class here at Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit. If you're liking what you're seeing, like, subscribe, ding the bell. Today, this episode of Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit was brought to you by the man who requested it, or rather, his company, The Art, Wiffle Possum Productions. Oh, man, I need to pay you. I will pay you after carrying crown. You're getting it, I promise. That's enough about that. Let's hit it. Okay, so before we can go in super depth about the Gunslinger, about our choice of race and things, we got to talk about how the class works a little bit. Because a Gunslinger is as varied as the gun you put on the Gunslinger. Also, as varied as the level of technology in your world. Maybe you're just rolling in with like a flintlock musket or a blunderbuss. Maybe you have a laser rifle. Or maybe some weird dwarven weapon that is a great axe that also fires bullets at people. Yeah, that's fun. It's fair. We can do that one. But really though, they are, on balance, relatively balanced for a lot of classes. The Gunslinger can cheat some of the things that make them balanced, but I mean, that is what we expect from the class. With that full base attack progression, you're probably always hitting, but with that bad will save though, I think that's more than balancing enough for a class that's going to be using a firearm in combat, because nothing hurts the party worse than when the Gunslinger gets mind controlled and starts shooting at their caster. For the purposes of our video, as I feel like if you get guns in your world, you will see early firearms the most. That's what we're talking about. An early firearm resolves against the target's touch armor class, whilst the target is within the first range increment of its weapon. But, really important, that's not considered a touch attack, so you can take deadly aim. Anything past the first range increment, you're resolving against normal AC. However, the thing about firearms is they force that fumble equals super bad thing into your world with the misfire. Firearms have a misfire value, usually like a 1 or a 1 to 2, and if you roll in that misfire value, the shot misses even if you otherwise would have hit, and your firearm gains the broken condition. While it's broken, it has the same amount of penalties that a broken weapon usually has. So that's like a 20 to hit and plus 40 to damage, and it's always good, am I right? No. If your item is broken, it suffers a -2 on attack and damage, it can only crit 20 times 2, and our misfire value jumps up essentially 20%. If you've got a firearm with a broken condition and misfire again, it blows up. That destroys the weapon. Magical firearms get wrecked and need a make hole or gunsmithing. And when that happens, you pick a corner of your square. Fortunately, it's not chosen at random, and you get a burst centered on that point, its size depending on the firearm. Any creature within that burst, hey, that's you too, good job, buddy, takes damage as if it had been hit by the weapon with a DC 12 reflex for half. That's one of the 2 more balancing factors for firearms for everyone who's not the Gunslinger. Of course, the Gunslinger has means of mitigating this. The other one is ammunition. Firearm ammunition is expensive. Again, the Gunslinger can mitigate this quite a bit, since they get a feat for free, and everybody else can take that feat. But even if you do, you're still spending a decent amount of money per shot in such a way that, especially in low-level play, when something doesn't have the ability to stand up against an attack against its touch for too long. Yeah, no, there's a reason the Gunslinger is proficient with all martial weapons, probably. And that reason is grab an agile something for if you just don't have the money in early level play to buy bullets. Enough about that. We'll start by talking about our race. That's me! Hello! Remember me? I was a bard once and I turned in and I went, la, I'm done with that, I got bored. I'm your friendly neighborhood goblin gunslinger. The most rudest, tootinest, shootinest, kneecapping all the long shanks from here to Magnuma and
back again. But I also have a tail, so that's fun.
And what my annoying little friend means,
I'm not annoying.
I think you might be, actually, is that we're not just playing a goblin. Today we're going to play a monkey goblin. In addition to that enormous +4 to dexterity, which looks really good to us despite a -2 to the mental ability score we're keyed off, and a climb speed of 30 feet, which is really hilarious.
You know, when I hang down from the tree with my prehensile tail and bang, 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 oh, you're all dead. Oopsie.
The monkey goblin is also one of 3 races, at least that I can think of off the top of my head, competing with the tiefling and the Venara to receive a prehensile tail. Now, there's gonna be some contention in the comments about this one, and you'll see what I mean about that later. Prehensile tails are really good. Just like how the alchemist can draw a potion with a prehensile tail, so too can we use our prehensile tail to retrieve small objects stowed on our person as a swift action. Or, in theory, though some GMs may want you to jump through a couple of hoops, reload a firearm. Now, it would be one thing if we needed to, like, jam shot in the cannon, or I don't really know how guns work. We'll take some feats to mitigate the amount of time it takes us to reload anyway, but having what comes down to 2.5 hands helps the gunslinger really go off. We're not just playing a normal gunslinger today, no. The fact that we're playing a goblin gunslinger is pretty good too, because they get a thing that's pretty neat, but we'll talk about that later. Again, there's about 1 billion ways you can build a gunslinger, depending on what you're going for, depending on the level of tech in your game. It kind of comes down just the same as, like, does your fighter have a reach weapon, or are you 2-weapon fighting with short swords, sword and shield, so on and so forth. Today we're building a Pistolero. The Pistolero only gains proficiency with one-handed firearms and must take a feat to use other firearms, and must take that battered pistol when they choose a firearm at first level. Oh yeah, you get to shoehorn firearms into your game by playing a gunslinger. Fun! But I like this archetype a lot for the monkey goblin because of that +4 to dexterity. In lower point buys, you're probably fine, just leaving your dexterity at 14 and letting the racial carry you to 18. But if you were able to start with 18 dex at level 1, that's a 22 dex. That's a modifier of 6 from jump to your attack rolls. Oh, you're full bad, targeting touch. And unfortunately, there are no light guns. There are only one-handed guns. The goal here will be to 2-weapon fighting with pistols. The Pistolero gets a couple of really sweet deeds that we're basically building around. From jump, up close and deadly says when we hit a target with a one-handed firearm that's not making a scatter shot, so no dragon pistols here, unfortunately. Though I will say I would love to play a high-strength race with like a axe in one hand and a shotgun in the other, kick down the door, tear everybody apart. But that's a different story, isn't it? Someone let me play a gunslinger. Please.
No, I'm here. I guess I can have this conversation. Okay, so by spending 1 grit point, I have a number of those equal to my wisdom mod, and I get them back under certain conditions, like critting and killing people. I can deal 1d6 points of extra precision damage, or half if I missed, cause I grazed ya, haha! This goes up to 2d6 at 5th, 3d6 at 10th, and that's as far as we'll see on this class, as we will multi-class out. Okay, you gotta go, man. You're hurting my throat. I just had a couple enchiladas. I'm not prepared to goblin. I'm sorry, y'all. It's okay, Tommy. I know my voice is hard. I promise I won't sneak up and shoot you.
But if he did, at 11th level, our final gunslinger level, we get twin shot knockdown. At 11th level, when the Pistolero hits a single target with 2 or more one-handed firearm attacks, during her turn, she can spend a grit point to knock the target prone. She can choose to spend the grit point after the attacks are made. That's huge because there's no trip combat maneuver. It's just hit, you fall over. Suddenly you're the best control marshal you've ever seen, and you didn't even have to roll a d20, other than the ones that were targeting touch. Of course, a prone defender gains a +4 bonus to AC against ranged attacks, but you're still targeting touch. You probably don't mind the +4. That's puts you roughly in the same realm as the archer, and all the marshals will love you when you're precise shotting in and knocking people over. That +4 against you is a -4 against them. Seriously, the barbarians will love you. Just ride on their shoulders.
Or, you know, like wrap your monkey tail around a bicep and boom, 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 and then they fall over, and then they get hit with the giant hammer and they're exploded now. We be goblins, but you be gross, barbarian. That's gross. Ew.
And that's why we want to have as many attacks as possible. Nova, Nova, Nova. We get sneak attack that they don't have to be flat-footed against. We just spend a point to do it, and we're knocking people over. Sure, some things will be immune to being prone, but there's no cap on that. You could run up to a colossal creature and shoot it in the toe twice, and it's gonna hurt so bad, it's gonna flip over.
Oh, you know what else? Starting at 5th level, I can use my really, really stupid high dexterity on damage rolls. And if I misfire, the misfire value only goes up by 2, and every 4 levels thereafter, I'll get a buff to damage.
And that's pretty sweet damage too. A small pistol does a d6 of damage with a range increment of 20 feet, critting times 4. That's a small short sword basically. The mediums are finessable d8s, and when you crit, you're shooting little scythes out. Remember the medium number, it's important. Anyway, let's talk about our traits, shall we? The first one is honestly kind of came out of left field for me. I never thought I would recommend this trait to any player, but Rich Parents is really good for a gunslinger. Being able to start out with a flat 900 gold is almost the cost of a second pistol, and again, being a gunslinger is kind of expensive, especially starting out. That's why you have to be handed your firearm, otherwise you'd never afford it. That should keep you loaded with bullets for quite a while. Now, the second trait, I'm just gonna go ahead and say reactionary again. +2 initiative will look good on everyone forever, especially with your really fast dex. Now let's talk about some feats. Or, you know, a lot of taxation, basically, because you are a ranged character. At first level, point blank shot is just so necessary. Fortunately, we'll probably always be within 30 feet as a gunslinger, so that buff will always be there. And we also, of course, are granted the gunsmithing feat for free. This allows us to craft any early firearm for a cost of raw materials equal to half its price. You know, magic item creation, but guns. More importantly, crafting ammunition, assuming we have 1 rank in craft alchemy, will let us craft our alchemical cartridges for a cost in raw materials equal to half the price of the cartridge. That's huge for us, because it's alchemical cartridges that we want to be firing as much as possible. Because alchemical cartridges are easier to load, and it reduces the time to load a firearm by 1 step. It's a standard action to load each barrel of a one-handed firearm, or now a move action with alchemical cartridges. You know, because shooting more is great.
And shooting your friends is bad, is what I hear. So the second taxi feat that all them ranged people have to take, precise shot. That lets me shoot at people in melee without a -4. It's a painful feat tax, but without it, I'm just gonna miss. Even though I'm targeting touch, it's not fair. I hate it. We're gonna go be a bard again. Nah.
Fortunately, the gunslinger does hand out some bonus feats every 4 levels. And again, we won't be a gunslinger forever. Rapid reload will be taken at 4th level. We, of course, must choose the type of firearm in question. We will choose a pistol, which bumps down the reload time by another step, because it's only logical that what is essentially an item bonus and your actual proficiency with the weapon in terms of reloading it, that ought to knock it down to a free action to reload. The notion here is we grab the paper cartridge with our tail, tear it off with our teeth, and then hand goes to tail, dump in, fire. Out from there, it's 2-weapon fighting at level 5. And this is around the time you'll want to pick up that second firearm. Now, since a pistol is a one-handed weapon, we will suffer a -4 on both attacks when we fire 2 pistols. Again though, I'm going to say it till I'm blue in the face, we're targeting the touch AC of somebody. The additional -2 from not being able to find a light firearm is kind of sad and kind of rough, but I mean, you can craft guns with a feat. Work with your GM. If your GM thinks it's fair to let you have a smaller pistol that you can offhand, sure. If not, accept the extra half damage and accept the -2 to hit, because eventually you will shoot at things with a touch armor class of like 8. The dragon will get wrecked as long as you're close enough to hit him, but that's what some enchantments and flying is for. Anywho, It's improved to weapon fighting immediately after its 7th for that extra attack. Then finally deadly aim at level 8, because remember that does work with our particular brand of touch attack because it's not a touch attack. We can stomach a -4 to hit if we're targeting touch. We can probably stomach a couple more to tack on that extra 2 damage, to tack on what is essentially 6 more damage per hit for a -3 now that we have a BAB of 8. After that, clustered shots is super clutch for us, and really all ranged characters. When we use a full attack to make multiple ranged weapon attacks against the same opponent, which we probably are a lot of the time, total the damage from all of your hits before applying DR. This also works for massive damage, but we're not necessarily worried about that. The point is, this is probably around the time it stands to reason that a poor roll could be shut off by DR. Clustered shots prevents that from happening, and so it's great. You know what else is great? Improved critical. That's our next feat. We select the pistol that doubles our threat range to 19 to 20 times 4. No keen here, we're shooting bludgeoning and piercing weapons at people. But since a critical hit with a firearm, as long as that thing we're shooting is not helpless or unaware, and as long as it doesn't have fewer HD than half of our level, considering that's how we get the grip point back, seems necessary. Also, times 4 criticals are just fun. I imagine we will gain our grits back in 2 when we confirm a crit times 4, then kill someone, and there's another grit point back. Seems good. Greater 2 weapon fighting comes down at 12th, and at this point we're into a second class actually, but we'll talk more about that towards the damage output. Greater TWF, of course, lands you a 3rd attack with your offhand weapon for more shooty. Then at 13th level we'll take weapon focused pistol.
That's the last of the tax feats, I promise. I promise.
We really just needed it though. Feels weird to take it now, but it is what it is. Anyway, at 14th level, Relentless Shot says that when you successfully trip an opponent within 30 feet with a ranged attack, remember, that's what we're doing. Basically the whole time we're novaing out for D6s and tripping people. No immediate actions here, you just threaten that opponent until your next turn. You can make AOs against that opponent with ranged weapons. This effect ends if you attack another target or the opponent moves from its current square, but that seems to be a threat range equal to the total range of the weapon. Real good in boss fights or when you need to keep somebody on the ground. Take that attack of opportunity as they stand up, shoot them again, and then everybody else attacks them, and damage is stacked on. It's gnarly. Anyway, at level 15, oh, by the way, we have some more extra bonus feats at this point, and now you'll notice that we're taking weapon specialization and choosing the pistol. Yeah, you guessed it, we're actually going to be a fighter from 12 to 20 specifically. The 2-weapon warrior. 8 levels of fighter don't look bad on anybody, considering the fighter is basically the gunslinger anyway. Defensive flurry, since we often will be full attacking with both weapons, essentially giving us a +2 dodge bonus to AC by the time we cap out, and a +2 bonus on attack and damage rolls when making full attacks with 2 weapons, a la twin blades. Reckless Aim comes next at level 16, which states that when you shoot or throw ranged weapons at opponents engaged in melee, probably most of your opponents will be, you can choose to take a -1 penalty to AC. Okay, sure, we're probably not getting attacked as much, we're not the melee character, to get a +2 competence bonus on the attack roll. However, should you fumble, you hit your friends. In the optimized party, a witch or a luck cleric, somebody who can give you advantage on your attack rolls, will stop that from happening, and also stop misfires from happening, at least most of the time. If you roll a 1 into a 2 or a 1 into a 1, it was probably destined to happen. Anyway, at level 17, Point Blank Master lets us not provoke attacks of opportunity while threatened when firing off our pistols. That might feel a little late. A pistol has a range increment of 4 squares at 20 feet. The distance enchantment can double that out to 40 feet, though once you have this feat, you can probably refund that enchantment for just a further enhancement bonus. Colossal creatures are real mean, don't provoke from shooting them. Another great feat for a build that's gonna hit a bunch, definitely one of my favorites. Next up, Hammer the Gap. Says that when you take a full attack action, each consecutive hit against the same opponent deals extra damage equal to the number of previous consecutive hits you have made against that opponent this turn. The damage is multiplied on a crit. Now that we're all super buffed out and stuff, Now that we have a BAB of 19 and probably a heavily enchanted firearm, let's add an extra penalty on our attack roll with Rapid Shot. Certainly we qualify for this by now. It's a further -2 on all of our attack rolls, but that's okay because it's really easy to make a Goblin's dex really high, and again, you're targeting, generally speaking, the lowest armor class in Pathfinder. And at 20th level, since we get that bonus combat feat, go ahead and grab Improved Initiative. Go fast. Really make sure you're shooting at their flat-footed touch armor class. But that's not all. There are a couple other feats in play here. Some of them may be somewhat optional, depending on your playgroup, depending on what you need to make two-weapon fighting with pistols work, according to your GM. But 2 of them are just staples, and we're going to grab them by putting the Training Enchantment on our firearms. The Training Enchantment, of course, grants a combat feat to the person who wields the weapon so long as they qualify for it. They can't use it to qualify for other feats, so on and so forth, but Goblin Gunslinger lets our poor little,
oh, that's me, let me talk, that's the poor little guy that I am, learn how to fire the big guns, using medium firearms without penalty.
Suddenly you're shooting agile D8s at folks.
Yeah, I know, right? That's so good!
The other feats on your Training Enchantment can be moved around flavored to taste so that you can get extra grit on the goblin as much as possible, because again, we want to use a grit point almost every time we hit somebody. If the dice are not in our favor and we're not critting or killing, we'll need to have that extra reservoir to pull through so we can make sure we're tacking on all that precision damage and knocking people over. Now, first off, these next feats are all for the players whose GMs won't let the prehensile tail be enough to reload a firearm. My first thought without feats, so all this next bit may be kind of arbitrary, the weapon cord lets you recover a weapon as a move action because, you know, it's tied to you. And you can still use your hand, so grab Quick Draw. Drop a weapon as a free action, in theory, draw it as a free action as well, reload and off you go. Failing that, if we can squeeze in some of our other feats onto the Training Enchantment and force Dazzling Display on somehow, Gun Twirling says that if you have Quick Draw, you can holster a one-handed firearm as a free action as long as you have 1 grit point, then draw it again as a free action and off you go. Failing even that, the Grasping Tail feat might also help get things running as well. Though personally, again, I think if you're using paper cartridges, it should be fine to just let the prehensile tail ride. Anywho, in the optimized party, and if you don't know what that is, follow this card right up here. Ironically, this ranged character is probably our Punisher. Shoot him twice, knock him over. Easy peasy. Keep them down till the little Uber Chargers or Archers or things can deal with them, or the Control Casters can deal with them with magic. The D10 hit dice and our high dex indicating high armor class probably, you know, that helps as well. As for our items, follow this card right up here to be directed to the big 6. Wisdom is our grit, dex is our to hit. There's some other shenanigan-y kind of things like bandoliers and a coat that, with the armor you're wearing anyway, amounts to a lot of money spent for 1 extra grit point. Really, I think you're just focusing on the big 6, keeping your dex up and your grit up so you can do all the shooty that you possibly can. And now let's crunch those numbers! At the end of the day, we will have a base attack of 20. Yeah, we did it, team. No gishes here. Starting with 22, plus 5 from leveling, 5 from a book, 6 from a belt. Means that we're coming out with a 38 dexterity. That is the fastest boy, a mod of 14. Let's take that 34, subtract 6 from deadly aim, and 6 from 2-weapon fighting and rapid shot. Yeah, fun times. Then a +1 from weapon focus, as well as point blank shot. And then a +2 from reckless aim. Remember, don't shoot your friends. Get your luck cleric or your witch to bless you. You're swinging with advantage. Then a +5 enhancement on your guns, and a +2 from the 2-weapon warrior. Means that on our best day, we're swinging 4 times at +34 to hit, assuming someone hasted us and we get not only an extra attack at our highest, but a +1 to hit. Then twice at 29, then twice at 24, then a single time at 19. You're firing 9 shots in 6 seconds. A Goblin Gunslinger means we're firing medium pistols for a D8 plus, remember, our dexterity, all 14 of it. +5 from an enhancement bonus, +1 from point blank shot, +2 from weapon specialization and twin blades, +1 from pistol training, and a big ol' plus 12 from deadly aim equals 37. 1d8 plus 37 damage, plus 3d6 for the low cost of 1 grit point. And this is not adding Hammer the Gap, and this is not adding any criticals. Assuming all 9 of these hit and rolling a 3, because a 1 or a 2 will miss. You'll misfire. Again, there are enchantments to get around this, but I think we're better off just asking our witch friend to keep us fortuned. So a 3, swinging a 3 means 22 versus touch at the end of the day. As things get bigger, things have a worse touch armor class. All we gotta do with that last attack before any other shenanigans to hit Cthulhu is roll a 10. The 24s have to roll a 5. Everything else is guaranteed to nail him, shenanigans aside. If you were to hit him 9 times, again, shenanigans aside, 37 times 9 is 333 plus 9d8 plus, if you feel like spending all your grit, maybe you crit a lot, maybe you were able to grab extra grit a whole heckin' lot, tax on 27 more d6 of damage. 27 d6 will average out around 95 damage. All the grit, all the daring actions. On average, it's 41 damage from that many d8, meaning we put down 469 points of damage if everything connects. Now, that doesn't begin to scratch Cthulhu. His fast healing and ability to do magic things means he'll be fine. But if any one of those crit, that 37 to damage becomes 148. Yeah, and you're critting 19 to 20, and if someone is giving you advantage, odds are that will happen at least once in a full attack. That's another thing I really like about having all of these bajillions of attacks. If you can get advantaged out of fumbling, odds are you're gonna get that crit. That's why, my friends, witches get stitches. What do y'all think? Have we played Gunslingers? Have we 2-weapon fightinged with pistols? Let me know all about it in the comments. That's all we have for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, be sure to like and subscribe for more content. Assuming I don't get patron sniped, next week we'll be back at it again. Next week, we're finally going to get to that dream-scarred pressed psionic. See you then.